All right. Good evening. I want to officially welcome you to Digital Z Hub, an online tech training platform. All right. So, what I'm going to start with is to actually assess your existing knowledge on Microsoft Excel. Like we discussed last time, this was supposed to be advanced Microsoft Excel training. Well, I would like to know, do I've asked you, since we are in for the training now, I'll just start with this curriculum that we are expected to cover on this section. So advanced Excel actually has some selected topics that we are expected to focus on, since we assume that we are done with the basic. The basics of Excel covers familiarization with the environment of Excel, knowing the definition of Excel, and then how to set up the worksheet, data entry, how to compute Excel query formulas, and all of that. And then how to use Microsoft Excel aggregate functions, query functions like sum, count. So I'm just mentioning them so that you can confirm if you don't have issue with all these aspects I'm mentioning. So I don't think you have any issue with that.
No.
Okay, so it then means that we just dive into the advanced aspects. But before that, whichever way we are going, we have to start with the official definition of Excel for us to start on the proper foundation. So as we all know, Microsoft Excel is an office application software which is primarily developed for computation of values and for performing various calculations. Now, since we are looking at the advanced Excel, it then means that we are looking at how we can use Excel to analyze data, because most of the advanced functions, they are actually designed for data analysis. So I'll be offering the training from the angle of using it for managing data or analyzing data. So the first thing we are going to look at, since we have the basic aspects, expect that you must have know how to open Excel, how I got to this very environment you are seeing. Now, the next thing we have to look at is how do we get data into these spreadsheets? Because what we have before us is an absolute empty spreadsheet. And the spreadsheets act as a framework that helps us to hold data values and also contain the functions. So in other words, what we are saying is that Excel spreadsheet is a powerful one that gives us access to access function libraries. So in this context, the word library means a collection of functions. So all the functions, or majority of the functions that we shall be looking at, we are going to be fetching them from the library. So I just want us to know that the spreadsheets serve two purposes. One is a platform or it's a framework that allows us to bring all our data components in one place so that we can use these advanced functions to draw insights that can be used for decision or effective decision making. At the same time, the spreadsheet is acting as a library. In other words, it constitutes different functions, both basic and advanced functions that a user can exploit depending on the purpose you intend to use these functions. So the first thing is how do we get data into these worksheets? I want to ask, do you have any data sets that you want us to work with, or I should just call in any of the data set I have?
Just call in any data you have.
Okay, all right. So let me see if I can get a business data. See if this is a well-structured data set. This is not
Here. For training. Okay.
this is not also a valid data. Just give me a few seconds. Should be able to get the data set from here. Okay, so let me work with this is not raw data.
I don't know if you won't mind. So I can list out the topic you have in mind covering.
Okay, I'm
I mean,
coming.
the
Okay.
program.
Wait, let me just get the data ready. Okay, so let me. All right, so so we shall be working with this data. Data is rich for applying some of the functions I'll be looking at. So like you requested for, let me quickly give you the list of the topic we are expected to cover under the advanced Excel before bringing in the VBA section. So I hope you are writing. I want to start mentioning them.
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one is start with Excel aggregates. Aggregates functions. So we'll look at Excel aggregate functions. In brackets, we'll look at intermediates and advanced. I will go a little bit intermediate so that you can understand the concept. Then we'll look at Excel lookup functions. Lookup functions. Excel lookup function.
Okay, baby girl. Okay. You are muted. You are muted.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. So Excel lookup functions. So under this lookup function, we'll be looking at VLOOKUP function. We look at HLOOKUP function. And then finally, we look at X. That is X lookup function. Now, the third category of function we shall be looking at will be Excel conditional formatting. Under this, we'll be looking at customized conditional functions and new rules. Then the the last topic will be data modeling. Using pivot table. So these are the key advanced topics. So when you hear advanced Excel, these are the topic involved that you must know. So
Okay.
with this topic, I have cut off all the basic things. So that is what it means, since we are going strictly with the advanced aspects. All right, so what we do tonight is there is what we call data cleaning. And it's all about perfecting your data. So the first step as a data analyst or as an advanced user of Excel, where an organization will give you data just like the one we have on the screen. It is your responsibility to ensure that all the values are in the right formats, that any of these functions we have mentioned can work with. For example, we need to ensure that our date format, if you look at this date format, you will agree with me that there might be some objection as we continue. There might be some objection. So what do I mean by objection? This might not align with the global database date format, because the global database format says that the arrangement of your days should be year first, followed by months before the day. But if you look at what I have on the data set, is contrary to that standard. So as a data analyst or someone who intends to work with this data with some advanced function, it becomes your responsibility to adjust all that. So all this falls under data cleaning. Another thing you need to check about the data, you need to study the data and understand what the entire data set or frame is made up of. Now, when we say data sets in the field of analytics, we are talking about the collection of the objects and the series. So in a given data like this, what are the objects? What are the series? The objects are the headers. For example, how do I know the header, the objects in this data. The region is an object. Country is another object. Item type is another object. So all the headers in this data sets, they are professionally referred to as what? Objects. Another word we can use to refer to the objects are or is the features. Features. So we can refer to them as the data what? Features. Now, we can also refer to them as the data attributes. Attributes. So using the word attribute, it means we are talking about your data elements that describe set of values. An attribute is referred to as your data elements that describe some set of what? Values. For example, now this is item type, which describe different what? Products, different item. This is country, header or attributes, which describe what? Different what? Country. Now, another thing I want us to understand is to take note of the type of data we have under each of these features. For example, in programming, this type of data is called strings. It's called strings, which means what? Character-based data. Once it is in form of text, we refer to that as what? Strings. So I'm just trying to explain these terms because in the course of the training, you will hear me using them. So each time I use the word string, you know that I am referring to a particular data type, which is text-based what? Data type or characters-based data type. Now, another thing again, after understanding that the type of data or the values you have under each of the header, particularly in this header, are string, you need to also understand whether they are categorical data. What I mean by categorical data, it means that what? They can be classified. For example, we have Australia and Oceania. So which means that we have them repeated, which can be what? Classified. They are categorical data. Now what we have here is still what? Categorical data. What we have here, the same categorical data. Then what we have here is still categorical data because it's either offline or online. So which means that you can classify them.
Yes.
Now here is also categorical data. Then once we get here, this is dates data type, dates. Dates is a reserved word within a cell. In other words, it means that the computer has already what? Has it as an input. Then here, these are not categorical data. These are unique value, unique value. So these are the things I want us to understand because before you can actually draw meaningful insight from a given data set like this, you need to know whether the values you have under any of the feature are categorical data or unique data. Now, what we have here is still dates. What we have here is units sold. So these are not unique value. Now, what we have here, these are monetary value, which are not also what? Unique. These are not unique. These are not unique. These are not unique. Then these are not also what? Unique. So with that understanding, we can now run some techniques to find out. So the next thing, what I'm explaining is still under understanding our data. So like I said, the first approach is for you to understand your data. So part of the ways of understanding your data is what so part of the way of understanding your data is all this showing you. So now the next thing you need to know is to have an idea of the total features in the data set. So instead of you counting manually, how do I automatically know the total numbers of features? These are some of the techniques you need to understand. So for example, all I need to do is to select the very first feature. In other words, you want to start your counting from that particular feature. You hold down the control button and the shift on your keyboard, and then you press the right arrow button. Excel will automatically select all the features, and then by the time you check your status, your taskbar here, you'll be able to have an idea of what the total numbers of features. So I have total what 14 headers in this data set, because having this idea tells me the width of the data set. That is what I'm trying to understand, because we have been using the word data set and data frame. There are two different words. When you use the word data frame, you are emphasizing on the width and the height of your given what data. The width, the measurement or the process of measuring, or the measurement of your data width and height, is what we call what data frame.
Okay.
Data frame. Now, for you to measure that, you have to add the headers. So the total numbers of features we have in a given data set helps us to know the width of the data. So what we just calculated now is for us to have an idea of the width. Now, if we want to know the height, we use the number of records in the data set to measure the height. So which means that I'll start by selecting here, hold down the control button as well, the shift button. This time around, press the down arrow button. That will automatically select everything you have in that column. And by the time you check here, you will also find out that you have 100. So which means that this data is 14 by what? 14 by
by 100.
100. Good. Right? So that has given me an idea of the total, give me an idea of the volume of the data set. So now let's quickly, these are some few things that we need to understand before we start approaching the data with our analysis techniques. So once you understand your data, the next thing you are to do as a data analyst or somebody who wants to draw insights from the data set is for you to draft the possible analysis question. Is a skill set that every data analyst must have. The first skill set is skill set on how to examine your data, how you can examine your data to know what and what, which is what I'm trying to display is. The second skill is for you to be able to draft your analysis question. And drafting the analysis question is driven by your objective. What are the insights you want to derive or draw from the data set? That is what determine your analysis question. So for you to be able to draft effective analysis questions, you must have a CEO mentality. You must have a manager what mentality, because these are individuals that make policies. These are individuals that drive sales. these are individuals with daily objectives as regard to the target, what they want to achieve. So what our analysis outcome we help them to achieve is for them to be able to make informed decisions, because our data, just like this one we have on the screen, represents the company what past and the current performance. That is how we look at data as data experts. We don't look at data ordinary, like the way the company who do not know the power of data looks at it. So as we are looking at this data, we can use this data to measure their past performance, and also use it to know their current position. And at the end, if we expand our analysis scale, we can as well project the future with the same data. That is why every analyst, every data analyst, what he or she needs before he can tell you or give you insights that can influence your decisions. I'm getting a kind of so much background noise there. That's why I muted it the other time. I don't know if you are still hearing me. I don't know.
Okay.
If there's any.
No.
Okay.
I'm not hearing background noise.
I'm getting like an object hitting, as if you are hitting. Okay. Maybe it's your hand. I'm no
Will it be
longer.
from my side?
Okay.
Let me.
Okay. All right. So just find a way of minimizing it if there is any of such. Okay. So when you want to say something, you can unmute, or you can use the react button. Okay. So like I was saying, I'm trying to give us some of the reasoning pattern of a data analyst. You see, of a truth from experience, what makes you a professional data analyst is not because you can use the available tools. It all starts from your reasoning pattern. How do you see data? How do you see data? That is very, very important. An ordinary business owner see data as something that does not make sense. But we as data experts, that data which does not make any sense to him or her, we can use it to tell them or to measure their past performance, their current performance, and if possible, predict the future. So that is the beauty of this field called data analysis. Without that, that means we do not exist. Now, what I'm trying to do, because I'm trying to see how I don't want to just dive into the advanced. Even I'm the one that tutor you on the basic. So I'm trying to establish foundation, because it's as if I'm just starting from the middle, but I'm trying my best to see how I can connect you to the trend. So like I said, after you understand your data, one important skill we must develop is ability to draft questions, which are called analysis questions. Now, this question should be drafted based on certain outline or known objectives. You must have a goal, and it is this goal that will determine. Now, where I'm driving to now is that these functions that I listed, we don't just learn them for knowing them sake. For example, now, because if I'm training someone who do not intend to use this for managing data, the training pattern will be different. Then I will just focus more on knowing how to use them. But in this regard, these functions are designed to solve analysis or data management a problem. So we do not just look at how to use them. We look at, okay, what exactly can the aggregate function? What are the challenges? What are the problems one could be facing with his or her data that can involve the application of the aggregate function. That is where I am driving to. So with this background that I have laid so far, now we can now quickly look at general introduction to the aggregate what function. Introduction to aggregate function. Now, what do we mean by aggregate function? Remember, under the aggregate function, I said I'm going to be focusing on intermediate and what? The advanced. So which means that I have cut off the basic. And what are the basic? The basic aggregate function covers sum, counts. Now, let me give you the general definition of aggregate function across all the available analysis tools, whether Excel or even Python or other programming or tools available for data analysis. So the word aggregate, it means that you are performing statistical what? Analysis. That is what it means. Because all these functions that I'm going to be looking at now, they are under statistical what? Functions. They are statistical functions which we use in performing statistical analysis on a given data set or frame. Now, from the word aggregate, they are used for summarizing data value, basically numerical data, numbers. Now, looking at this data set that we are given, I am going to be drafting some analysis questions, and then I will now be bringing this aggregate intermediate function one after the other, using them to answer those analysis questions, because that is the best way we can learn them. So I'm starting with the sum if function. The sum if function as the first aggregate function. The sum if function. Now, what is the sum if? Let's start with the word sum. Sum means what? To add a value, to aggregate. Now, the word if that is added means what? Condition. That word is conditional statement. Conditional statement. So we can now define the sum if function as an Excel powerful function or tool for summing values based on specific criteria. Let me come again. The definition of sum if function, I said it is one of the Excel powerful function or tool for summing values based on specific criteria. Based on specific criteria. So the keyword here is what? Condition. So you are adding value, but this time around, you have a defined criteria that will determine the addition. So how do we, looking at this data set, this is a data set which we can classify as this is inventory. Looking at the headers, you can agree with me that this is what says inventory. Now, supposing I want you to write down the analysis question, because at some point I will switch to your screen for you to perform this same analysis. So let us write the question down. So the first question, which I want to answer with the sum if. What are analysis solution that the sum if can provide? Now, looking at this data now, the first question is from the sales inventory data, from the sales inventory data, summarize total profits. summarize total profit per country. Per country. So that is the first analysis task. We are to summarize the total profits per country. So that kind of question will definitely require what? Sum if per country. That's the criteria. The question is that how many criteria are mentioned here? Just one per country. So we are advancing from one criteria. I'll go to what? Two criteria, three criteria. Now you are expected to have a dashboard. A dashboard in this case is an interface used for compiling all your insights, because this is the data set you are given. You are not expected to display your insights, whatever you have derived from the data that will influence effective decision. You are not supposed to display them on the same sheet. So I'll go to another sheet like this, and then if possible, I name this sheet my insight dashboard. So I say what? Insight dashboard. Now, the question, you are to write out the question within that same dashboard, so that if you are presenting your insights, you don't have to start looking at different material from the dashboard. So what I'm going to do is to merge some cell together in order to write my question. So I will just merge. I can say, okay, the Q1, the question one. The question one is, let me merge these whole cells together. And then, of course, I expect you to know how to merge cell from basic Excel training. So you just go back to home and then select what? Merge. Center. In other words, it will merge and position your entry at the center of the cell. So the first question is analyze the total profits. Try to shorten it per country. That is the first analysis question. So just to make the write-up more presentable, I can format it, give it color, increase the size. So let me also copy the same thing here. So I'll click here, select format paint, and give it to this automatically. Okay. So, all right. Now, to answer that question, we have to first of all list out the unique countries. That is the first task. The unique country. The unique country. And how do we achieve that? So go back to the data set and then copy everything you have under the country. So I can include even the column header. But the way I selected it, you can see that it stopped exactly where the record stopped. So once I have it selected like this, Ctrl+C to copy, and then I will switch back to my Insight dashboard and Ctrl+V to paste. Then double click here to expand the column. Now, so let me label it country. Right? So the next thing is for us to label where we want to output our analysis value. Based on the question, we are summarizing the total profit per country. So here should be titled total profits. Can just say total profit, since we have listed out the country. Now, but another thing we need to ensure is if you look at what we have here, we have some values repeated, duplicated. So the first thing is for us to clean up this data. We have to make sure that we have just one country entry representing all the transactions from that country in the data set. So how do we achieve that? So I'll select the from the column or from the column description, which is the feature, and then go to your home tab and then select go to data tab rather, then locate what we have. Okay, locate remove duplicates. So once you click here, Excel is going to pop up a message like this. So why do we have this message? Because we have some value besides or around this selected area. So I will just set Excel to continue with the area I selected so that it doesn't include them. So I'll select what? Remove duplicates. And then you get a reply, a kind of confirmation that is this the column where you want to remove the duplicates. You select OK, and then we get an output that says 24 duplicate values found and removed. Now we are left with just 77 unique value remaining. So which means that right now we are 100% sure that each country is represented once. So that is what the analysis question said. Now, the next is for us to bring in the function. Of course, you all know that the standard rule for entering formula in Excel is by starting with what? Equal sign or plus sign. Now, we go ahead and activate the sum if function. So now, the function has what we call arguments, which we need to understand. So the argument means or let's say the parameters. Let me use the word parameter. The word parameter explains the data you are expected to give to the function in order to get the expected outputs. Now, if you look at the function definition, we have range, that is the first parameter. We have criteria as the second parameter. Now, there is another one that is selected in a square bracket. So anytime you see that one, it means that it is an optional parameter. An optional parameter. For any other parameter that are in the function declaration, they are compulsory, that are not selected with the square bracket, which means that there is no way you can achieve what you are looking for without supplying range and defining the criteria. Now, going back to the question, because it is the understanding of the question that will help us to know what we are expected to give to Excel as range, what we are to give as criteria. The question says, analyze the total profit per country, which means that you are dealing with two features, values in the entire data, country value and what? Total profit value. One of them will be dependent variable, while the other one is independent variable. So how do we differentiate them? The question from what we want to achieve here is that we are summarizing the values under total price based on this. So which one is dependent, sir? And which one is independent? Looking at the construct of the question. So if you can unmute and respond.
The criteria will depend on the country.
Okay, that is what? The summation of the values under total profit depends on the selected country, right?
Country.
Good.
Yeah.
Now, which means that the total value, total profit value, they are dependent variable. Why this is independent variable. That's the point I want you to understand. Now, if the value here are dependent here, which means that what? The range is the selection of what? The independent variable. That is what it means. Now, it means that we are bringing in a concept called a cell what? Referencing, or a cell intersheets argument what? Referencing. Now, because in all the sheets, you have the same alphabet repeated. In this sheet, we have column A, we have column B. All right. Now, in the other sheet, we have row 1, we have row 2. So what differentiates the alphabet, which are the columns in this particular sheet, is the name of what? The sheet. So what we need to do, once we have activated our function, we go back to the data and capture all the independent variables. So in other words, I'll start from the very first value, but if I take it like this, peradventure there is additional entry tomorrow, it will not be captured. And when we are programming an automated system like this, we don't stop at where the last record stopped. We need to create room for tomorrow. So should in case they impute values tomorrow, your programming should capture them, not the company involving you to come and start programming again. So let me show you, I'm going to show you 2 different ways we can get this achieved. I am going to start by selecting the letter. Are you still here? Okay. So I'm going to start by selecting the letter. So if I click on this letter B, that is different from me selecting here, holding down the control button and the shift, and then pressing the down arrow button. That will simply select everything you have. That will select only the used cells. It will not include what? The empty what? Cells. So if I want to continue, in other words, I want to capture everything, both the used and the empty cell, I'll go back and hold down the control and the shift and hit the down arrow button again. So with this now, you have selected the empty what? Cell or empty variables. So as soon as value comes in this selected variable cell, it will automate in your dashboard. That is the idea. Now, but what I am saying is that it might generate error. It might generate error when you select like this. So the best way of selecting is to select the what? The alphabet like this. The alphabet selects both the cell, both the empty cell and the used what? Cells. Now, you can see that the argument is already defined here. So this is what I meant by the Excel argument. Now, what we have just captured now is the set of value or range where the criteria for summing up the total profit that is the meaning, or is. Now, once you have done that, you insert a comma, which means that we have applied what? Range. Now we want to supply what? Criteria. So what you are telling the cell, okay, this is where you should search for the criteria for the summation. Now, what is the criteria? The criteria, you switch back to your dashboard and select the very first country. So with that, you have picked a criteria, and then you add a comma. Now, the function itself you are dealing with, which is the sum, works with number. It doesn't sum what? Strings. In other words, it does not sum text. So you have not supplied values, arguments. Okay, so you have to go back to the data set and then capture all the values you have under what? Profit. So in order to give room for future entry, I will also use what? The letter selection. And then you press enter here. You don't have to go back to your dashboard, because once you go back to your dashboard, you have changed the reference. So I'll press enter here, and then the answer is outputted here. Now, you don't need to do the same for this. You don't have to start writing the function from scratch because Excel has so much AI that can interpret your intention once you have given it words and example. So with this, I will do what we call autofilling. Autofilling. Autofilling simply means a process whereby you copy the function you have used initially to calculate for other variables. So I will just click here, double click, it will automatically what? Analyze other country. So this is the first thing. So I want to pause and you share your screen, or maybe I will have to send you this data via WhatsApp, then download it. I don't know if you have WhatsApp on your laptop. Do you have WhatsApp on your laptop? Please, can you unmute and respond? Do you have WhatsApp installed on your laptop?
I do.
Okay, so I want to send it to you so that you can perform exactly the same analysis. So let me quickly do that. Come in. Almost. All right, so I've sent you the data now. Just now you have to share your screen. Let me allow you to share your screen. Can you hear me? Share your screen. You can.
Yeah.
I can see your screen, but let's see if I'm seeing just part of it. I don't know if you are the one that minimized the window.
Can you see my screen?
Are you still here? Hello, sir.
Yes, I am.
Okay, I think
I'm still here.
just that
Yes, I'm around. Can you see me?
I can see you, just that I'm here to see your screen. If you can, maybe. Uh, mm, if you can unshare and share again so that I can see your
Okay,
screen.
let me
Please
share it.
just share, just unshare and share again.
Yeah, that's what I've done.
Yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah. Can you see it now?
We're starting the screen. You see it here, but it's coming up. It's coming up. Okay, I can see your screen. Yeah, I can see it.
Start is here.
Yeah, I can see it now. Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me? Function. Good. Now you can go to the data set. Go ahead, go ahead. Okay.